I don't have my superhero shirt on though. Darn.
Well, you kind of do. You got your DMLO. I mean, I guess you guys maybe you're superheroes of the number crunching world.
Yeah. Yes.
And John's the one that's I knew John would probably be wearing something branded. And I was really counting on that because mine's in the laundry and I am a single guy. So I do the whole, that's clean thing. But I think after 3 wears, I can't do that anymore, even though you guys can't smell anything. So anyways, that's a good cold open right there.
Really good to know.
Awesome.
Jason's laundry habits.
My laundry habits. Everybody now knows. There we go. Let's get the show going. All righty, here we go. Welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Jason Davis. That's John. That's Mitch. And this is Delene Taylor. So today we're talking about social entrepreneurship and making connections. So on this episode, we're talking with Delene Taylor, a fellow Louisville native who's passionate about connecting businesses. Delene is the marketing director of DMLO, as well as the founding board member of Canopy. So we'll get into what Canopy is in a little bit and let you kind of like do your thing and introduce yourself, and let everybody know who you are. And you can correct me on this, but I did pull this copy up. So yes, I am reading this because, on this Friday, it's been a hectic week. So I wasn't really fully prepared. So notes.
Good. I won't feel so bad when I read my part either.
We're all on the same ship.
Yeah. Canopy is a nonprofit supporting businesses that improve the lives of people, our planet, and the future. They help businesses inspire and initiate change on environmental, cultural, and social issues in the state of Kentucky. So, Delene, welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast. Tell us what you're passionate about. Tell us more about Canopy. And also, is it LIBA or LIBA? These are
LIBA, I think. The Louisville Independent Business Alliance.
Sure.
So hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast. And I think I saw a Facebook post about it or something like that. I can't even remember how we connected to begin with, but so I am the marketing director for DMLO CPAs. We have about 160 people in 3 offices in Louisville and in New Albany and Corydon. We're a full service CPA firm. Of course, right now we're focused primarily on the tax deadline and making sure everyone's in compliance with all the crazy new legislation that has come out over the past few months. But we do a little bit of everything. We do a lot of advisory services. We do payroll, we do bookkeeping, and we do work a lot with startups. And my particular passion is startups and particularly social entrepreneurs. So people who are interested in people, profit, planet, and not just the profit aspect of that. So I do a lot of work with nonprofits, but nonprofits are always looking for more resources. It never seems like they have enough to fully complete their mission. And so businesses, for-profit businesses that have a social mission can really make an impact, especially when they collaborate with each other. So that's kind of my passion, is making connections, finding people that are doing good in the world, promoting them, introducing them to each other, and helping them along the path towards making a difference in our world.
Yep. Yeah. You're a very busy person.
Yes.
Involved in a lot of things. When we first talked with you, that was one of the things you mentioned, like, I'm in a lot of stuff. And you are. So I think because of that passion, that's what qualified you as a nerd. And the posting was actually from me shamelessly putting it on Liba's Facebook page about the podcast. Because I do that I'll do that maybe like once a quarter. I'll be like, okay. See what happens.
And look, here I am.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely have this on there to share for folks on there as well. So thank you for being with us here today, and let's kind of like get into it. So a little bit of a change here at NerdBrand on segments and on who does what segment. I didn't mention this on the last episode because it kind of happened organically, but Jonathan now will be providing everybody here listening and watching with the brand bit. And Mitch is reviving nerd news.
We need it. It's been lacking the last year because there's nothing been happening really.
Yeah. So, John, you got a brand bit for us though this week?
A little bit. You all probably have more to say about it than I will. But I think we all saw during the Super Bowl, Paramount Plus kind of rolled out, and that was at least my first exposure to that new streaming platform. And I just learned that it was actually a rebrand of CBS All Access. I didn't know that was connected. So
I didn't either.
They've recently finalized that rebrand with the name change. And of course we've all seen the rollout. Like I said, you guys may have more to say about it than I do. I don't really know what's under that umbrella. I know Nickelodeon is under there. They've got a lot of like entertainment. I think VH1 and BET and maybe MTV is even underneath that umbrella.
The network formerly known as Viacom.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they own properties like, well, one of the biggest, it's not the biggest because it doesn't make that much money, believe it or not, is Star Trek. That's them. Really? They own that franchise. Star Trek films make 200, maybe 250 million on a good weekend or run, I guess I should say. So I don't know if they'll do another one of those. There was supposed to be a fourth one planned, but Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine, they's a little expensive right now. For obvious reasons, they're tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Chris Pine is obviously tied into the DC EU. So, good luck getting them. But on that note, William Shatner turned 90. He just turned 90, so
from a branding perspective, it's interesting to me. Obviously, we talk about Netflix and Disney Plus and all these streaming wars that are happening. We talk about that almost every episode. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about just adding a plus after everything? Is that really
brand plus?
We have the plus in our logo. So
yes, they do.
We're ahead of the game.
You're already ahead of it. Yeah. I get the value of sticking within parameters of the market and kind of the cultural expectation. Like everybody kind of knows what it means to get a plus behind the service. You're getting a premium service, probably some kind of subscription.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like there's an opportunity to do something a little different.
Well, I think if you look at Disney Plus, for example, it's Disney Plus, but they have other properties within the Disney that channel that aren't immediately recognizable as Disney. So maybe that's why, in their case, maybe that's what the plus means.
Yeah.
Paramount Plus, admittedly, I don't have it, so I haven't investigated any deeper.
Yeah, like I said, they've got some pretty big entities underneath them with Nickelodeon and BET, VH1, and I know there were some other big names. But yeah. So that's happening. We'll keep an eye on it because we talk about the streaming platforms all the time, and when competition heats up, what happens? Branding becomes significantly more important. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on.
As these new streaming services come online and try to offer unique content, I wonder how much they're going to push the boundaries of the hardware that you have eventually at some point. Because I can't see I just bought a fourth generation, right? So I think that's the latest one. All I know is you can talk to it, and I don't want to talk to my Apple TV, but that's the way it's wired. But I kind of wonder, how many devices are you going to need to have to watch entertaining shows? How much of that can be, is manageable? I'm a child of the 90s, so I remember 5,000 remote controls laying on a coffee table. How often? So now the remote controls are tinier. And here's your Roku, and here's your Apple TV, and here's your smart. Really, it's almost like we've kind of come full circle, hasn't it?
Well, some of the smart TV. Sorry, John.
I was just saying, now they're all in your phone. You got an app for each one.
That's what I was going to say. Some of the new TVs that are coming out, when you buy the TV, they may not come with a remote. They say download our app for your phone, and there's your remote.
Yeah, streaming wars, something to kind of keep an eye on. So yeah, good brand bit, man. So I bet that's going to tie into the nerd news. What say you, Mitch?
Maybe a little bit. Along those lines, Disney has massively overhauled its upcoming slate. Black Widow and Cruella will now premiere on Disney Plus at the same time they open in theaters. Now, theater owners have been struggling through the pandemic, so they're kind of concerned about that. Cruella will arrive on May 28th. Black Widow has been pushed back to July 9th. It was supposed to premiere on May 7th. That's also pushed back the other Marvel release for the year, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which was originally going to premiere in July. Now has been pushed back to September 3rd.
How many people would have thought, at least with us here, we can answer this, 10 years ago, somebody said to you like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America maybe, but would you have thought of Thor?
Well, Guardians of the Galaxy is the one that comes to mind for me. Nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were.
Yeah. Delene, how many of these franchises, movies have you been exposed to so far? Have you kept up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or are you on the DC side?
Marvel, but I am not, some of what you guys are saying is just I will tell you that I watched WandaVision after our last conversation. It wasn't really on my radar, and then you mentioned it and I was like, I'll go check it out. And that's really a cool show. I binged the whole thing. So yeah, I am.
So you enjoyed it?
Yes, I did enjoy it. And my husband is a big, Marvel fan, DC fan. I mean, I don't even know which one is his favorite, but I know that he loves to go to the theater and see any of those movies. So, and I think he owns a lot of them as well. So
yeah,
somebody in the family does.
if you're new to like the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, I mean, to be you is sort of like, I guess it's like us coming across somebody that's never seen Star Wars, especially like Empire Strikes Back. It's like they don't know the twist, and to watch that and watch them for the very first time, like we've all known. Like I was born in 1976, so Star Wars when I was a kid, my dad had the 40, not the 45, but the LP of the entire track, and I would go to sleep to that. I had the Star Wars.
I saw Star Wars on my 16th, the Return of the Jedi, on my 16th birthday at Showcase Cinemas.
Wow, yeah.
That's my story.
My gosh, that was a heck of a place to see a movie. I mean, their screens were huge. God, I miss that.
Yeah, I think the last film I saw there at that place was Star Trek 5. That was the last film I ever watched. I went with my dad and my mom. My mom read all the books. She was really big into Star Trek. And so we went there. I remember standing in line just to get into the movie. And so that was my last experience, I guess, at that theater before they closed it.
Mine was Batman, the first Batman movie. We were second in line, the first showing.
I can't remember where I saw that at. I really don't. I want to say it was at a drive-in. There was a drive-in out in Fairdale off Southside Drive.
Yeah.
That was the one I went to. Yeah. Man.
Well, that was cool.
Well, that was a nice time traveling experience we all just did. So WandaVision. Yes. WandaVision is a great show to see. The Falcon and Winter Soldier's out now. You should go check out episode 1 and then 2. It's got a Lethal Weapon type vibe, but it's very good. It's setting itself up to be another really good kind of series to follow through for when Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness comes out, which I guess now Black Widow now precedes that. I don't know. I can't talk English today, but that seems to be now first. They keep switching up the order, like I said in the last episode, which you can go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast and listen to it and find it. It's like it was supposed to be like WandaVision was 4th. I think I said it was 4th in line. And then it was multi-universe or Doctor Strange 2. And then Falcon later. Like everything is like, quote a term I said earlier, ghibli jarbed. Everything is ghibli jarbed.
We had to go online and find a timeline somewhere. Okay, what is the official timeline when these things, just when everybody got the phase 1 and 2 set of, or however many phases there have been, everybody's kind of got that chronology down. Now you have to learn a whole new one because of what they're going to do with the next set of films.
And I say that because like Marvel from a brand, hey, kitty, Marvelous. Sorry for our listeners on audio. That was not me having a Tourette's moment or anything like that. Delene has a cat and it's pretty. Anyway, I keep forgetting, can't forget our audio listeners who are probably jogging or doing whatever and going, are these guys okay? Anyway,
No, we're not.
Yeah, you got to imagine brand management. We talked about that before. Sitting in that room, they got to be having weekly meetings. All right, what's second, first now? Because this keeps changing. It's like the joke that never ends. When's on third and who's on first?
I did not to camp on it, but I will. The thing that's most compelling to me about Falcon and Winter Soldier is the fact that they've really woven into the larger universe and the larger storyline the full effect of what they call the blip. That is when Thanos snapped his fingers and, half the population of the universe disappeared. And now they've all come back. And they're really, really getting into the larger world ramifications of what would that do to society if all of a sudden these people were gone and now they're back. Everything from the financial, and if you watch it, Delene, this is interesting because they kind of get into a little bit on a personal level, like somebody talking to their banker. The effect that had.
I did watch it, and then I was so disappointed because I'm so used to these shows being released, all the episodes being released. And I got to the end and I was waiting for it to go to the next episode and it just didn't. And I was like, what the heck? And I went looking and I was so disappointed.
Yeah. But see, that was kind of the benefit for you of catching WandaVision after they'd all been released. You could binge that. Now you can't binge the Falcon and Winter Soldier. You got to wait like the rest of us.
Yeah. For those watching, Mitch doesn't have the cold or coronavirus. He's just fidgety with his nose for some reason.
I'm sorry. Allergies are killing me today, folks. Yeah. I apologize.
Anyway, yeah, I would recommend, to kind of follow up with what Mitch is saying about the blip. That's where Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, is going, because the first episode they dealt with that when his sister tried to get a loan. So, yeah, social commentary, though, is not unusual, which is where we get into our main topic here for the podcast. Comics have been making this. They've been using that. Movies do this with social commentary for years. So in line with, I guess, social entrepreneurship, the first one that I thought of from the nerd angle may not be really the first one, but Stan Lee. I mean, we're talking about Marvel, and this was kind of Stan Lee's thing. So he used to have this thing that he called Stan's Soapbox, which... was pretty crafty of the man. I mean, he knew how to sell the product, which was his own brand, but also Marvel and the characters and their brands and how he created them. I mean, he was just very on point with that. And so one of the things was X-Men. It was a team of mutants who endured bigotry, inspired by the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X influencing pacifist Professor X, and militant Holocaust survivor Magneto. So, but Stan had a really good, strong sense of business ethics as well. And so with great power comes great responsibility, right? So he said, one of his quotes that I found was, while I don't stop muggers, I do try to use my modest success, modest, and intrinsic power as an investor, a professor, and a columnist to promote truth, justice, and the entrepreneurial way. Now, that last part of the quote, he's poking at what they used to call their distinguished competition down the street. Hence, because that's a line right out of Superman. Just changed up a bit. So I thought that was kind of he was really good at that.
Yeah, Stan's Soapbox, it was a column that appeared in every month in every issue of every comic book. They had an editorial page, but there was always the yellow column on the far left-hand side of the page that was Stan's Soapbox. And he covered a number of different topics, not always comic book related. I mean, he talked about things like, the civil rights movement. He talked about women's rights. He talked about when the drug epidemic in the late 60s and 70s. He covered not always, so he wasn't always pounding you over the head with it. But you got a sense that he felt a sense of responsibility to having a platform and this goes to, I think, where Delene comes from. If you're blessed enough to have a platform, to use the benefits of that platform to do a greater good. And I really think, I don't think it was just salesmanship on Stan's part. I think it was sincere.
Oh, I do too. Yeah. But Canopy KY, can you tell us, Delene, a little bit about tell us a little bit about Canopy KY? And because I like how they're like doing good business in Kentucky, I believe is the tagline. So like coming up with it and starting it, like, I don't know, just kind of give us a little bit, another overview of that and how you think that maybe, you know, Canopy and Past and the Stand have some synergy and connection with the same beliefs and the philosophy. So if that makes sense.
Sure. I love talking about Canopy. So, you know, Kentucky is known for a lot of things that aren't so great. So we rank pretty high in some of the vices and some of the things that, you know, you don't want to rank high for.
Right.
And we rank lower than we would like to in some of the good, on the good charts. And so Scott Collins, he's the president of Facilities Management Services, which is a janitorial service. And he has a fantastic story. You should probably have him on the show, actually, from the start of inheriting his dad's janitorial service out in Shelbyville that had 30 employees to, you know, having over 900 employees in his space down in Portland. And, you know, his company, Facilities Management Services, is now rebranded as FMS PBC, and that stands for Public Benefit Corporation. So he lobbied along with Jerry Miller for PBC legislation. I think we were like the 32nd or 33rd state to actually adopt that. So a public benefit corporation is a for-profit corporation that has a formal, stated, structured social mission or environmental mission. And they measure it and they report on it. Now the legislation, you know, it doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. Basically, you can register and, you know, file your articles of incorporation as a public benefit corporation and add that to your name. And that's about it. You know, there's no real accountability built into the legislation. So, you know, Scott saw an opportunity to make Kentucky first in something. So he founded Canopy along with help from Stolkeen and Ogden, who was one of the initial investors. Tom Rutledge helped write the legislation, and Tom Williams is also a founding board member. He's currently the chair of our board. So Canopy's formal mission is to grow Kentucky businesses to positively impact people, our planet, and our future. And to make Kentucky first in the good business movement. So we want to become sort of the Mecca. We want to make Kentucky sort of the Mecca of social entrepreneurship. So to be one of the most friendly states, or the most friendly state for people who want to form social enterprises or to work for social enterprises. So Canopy has a big vision. You know, we have developed a certification program that's online, and the first companies have gone through that process. And it involves, I think the certification process is, I'm just going to look real quick. The assessment tracks are leadership, culture, governance, and external impact. So you may score high in one area and not as much in the other area, but there are certain base levels of, I guess, accomplishment or measurable activity that you need to be able to report to get certified. And Canopy recognizes that not everybody can, devote the time and resources right away to becoming certified, but there are a lot of for-profit businesses that are interested in, moving towards that. And so we've set up electives and merit badges in different areas that you can get started along that journey and towards certification, and then complete it as you are able to incorporate different pieces of this into your organization. But DMLO from the beginning was interested because we have been I guess an informal social enterprise for a long time. There are a lot of for-profit businesses that intuitively do great things in their community, right? And CPA firms are known for their giving back to the community. But it's us doing our individual things, supporting fundraisers for our nonprofit clients and having teams in different races around town, and volunteering at organizations personally and serving on nonprofit boards. But we can't solve homelessness by ourselves, right? But if we team up with other for-profit companies and the CEOs of those companies all sit around a table and pool their resources and their energies and their connections, we could probably solve homelessness, right? And we could partner up with the nonprofits that are already working in these spaces to make sure that they have the bandwidth that they need and the resources they need. So that's the idea behind Canopy, is number one, to educate people around the state. A lot of people don't even really know what a social enterprise is or what a public benefit corporation is. They may have heard of B Corp and think that's the same thing, but that's actually another certification. And it's a very, I guess, prohibitive in a lot of ways, because it takes, almost a year of gathering data and putting effort into the process of getting certified. You have to score a certain amount to earn certification, and the fees are pretty prohibitive. So I think a lot of Kentucky businesses wouldn't even consider that, right? And so that's why Scott saw the need to create Canopy and develop a certification process that was much more accessible and attainable to our businesses here in the state and around the state, not just in Louisville or Lexington, right? So back to his story, FMS is I think the only, or maybe the first now, janitorial service in the world to earn B Corp certification. So he actually took his company through that process. And like I said, the FMS story is just really an incredible story in itself. So for Canopy, we feel like we have an obligation to travel around. We have what we call a traveling roadshow. We go around the state and we talk in universities and chamber meetings to businesses, employers, anyone that will have us, honestly, to just share this sort of information, what it means to be a social enterprise, and how can you measure that, and how can you collaborate with others to really have a significant impact in your community. So there's that. And then eventually, we want to create a job board so that all of the members of Canopy, so it's a membership organization, you can become certified, but you can also be a member even if you're not certified, as long as you're working towards that. Mm-hmm. So we could create a job board of all the jobs that are currently open for Canopy members, for social enterprises. And we think that will serve as talent attraction for the state, that people all around the country would look at this job board and say, I want to work for a company that is tackling the homelessness issue. I want to work for a company that's tackling, issues of racism and redlining and that sort of thing. And I can make a difference in Kentucky, whereas, maybe I can't make as big of a difference in California or New York. So the idea is to bring these people to our state, to bring new companies, social entrepreneurs to our state, and then ultimately to produce impact reports each year that say this is the collective impact of what all of the Canopy members have had on the state of Kentucky in the past year, and to take that to Frankfurt and say, we want some perks, we want some tax benefits, we want some purchasing benefits for companies that are doing good work in our state. And ultimately, I just feel like that can be a huge attraction for people around the country that see Kentucky as doing something really significant in that space.
Yeah, it's definitely unique for Kentucky, because a lot of migration before the pandemic was happening, and people were leaving big cities already. Like, it wasn't just, there's people leaving Chicago for places like Nashville, Charlotte. People in New York were also leaving, and people from California were going to Washington State, the Midwest, Texas. And of course, that's really accelerated now because of some of the social issues that are happening And so, yeah, Kentucky finding a way to stand out, it's a really good thing, because bringing people here, like economic growth can't just be the businesses. You got to have the residential tax base as well. You got to have people living here comfortably, being able to afford to live, and work as well. So yeah, when you mentioned the homelessness, that's what triggered in my brain was what's happening out west right now, and just the benefits, looking at all of the taxes and how high they are in California, and then what the other states they're doing. They're offering those breaks for those they can go out there, like where California, for example, is raising taxes. Other states are like, yeah, we're good. We're not going to raise. And that's just bringing the businesses. I mean, major companies moving into Austin, for example, we've seen that. Yeah. So having some
Like you
sort of
said,
attractor. Yeah.
yeah, when like you said, that brings in people. That brings in people. But Delene, one of the questions I have is there been any thought to transplanting what Canopy does in Kentucky to other places, or kind of
Oh,
move
definitely.
it outside of the bluegrass?
Yeah, definitely. Ultimately we hope it was spread across the country, but our focus is to perfect the process right now to get, we're launching the official Canopy certification to the public, I think probably in May. So there'll be a big splash about that, and you'll learn more about some of the companies. So let me look. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but we've had, let's see if I have the list of companies that went through. So the alpha companies who kind of tested out this online platform for us were Mobile Serve, Bullhorn Creative out of Lexington, Interapt, D.D. Williamson, The Color House, and Against the Grain. And let's see, there was another one, I can't remember. But so those are companies that have already been through the process and given us their feedback so that we could fine tune the program. And then we have probably a list of 30, I believe, companies that have signed letters of intent to go through the certification process. And so they're just waiting for that official launch to get that started. And we already have members. I will shout out DMLO for being one of the early investors. I think about CPA firms and how typically risk averse they are, and how odd and wonderful it is that a CPA firm our size chose to invest $50,000 in a nonprofit startup. That's how much we believe in the good business movement and want to be part of it and want to see it be successful in Kentucky. So if we can get, we're always looking for additional funding so that we can expand more rapidly. And if we could get other companies like DMLO and Stolkeen and Ogden and D.D. Williamson and Matt and Fran Thornton, and those are just a few that have invested. And we actually had investment from the state when we first launched, and then of course, all the budget things that happened there, that kind of got derailed. But we actually had an initial commitment of $100,000 back in 2018 from the state of Kentucky, and I think it was $25,000 from the mayor here in Louisville. So, part of it is just getting the word out, letting people know what we're doing, finding people that are like-minded that want to align with us and partner with us to advance this more quickly. And yeah, so this is a perfect opportunity. Thank you for the platform here and the ability to share a little bit about what's going on with the good business movement.
Oh, no, you're welcome. I assume that because based on everything that you just said, I'm assuming that that's how you got involved with LIBA, because it kind of taps into the startups, and I guess that's what they're doing, right? Can you talk a little bit about LIBA and how you got into that and your involvement?
Yeah, so LIBA has been around for a long time. Their slogan is "Keep Louisville Weird," and their website is keeplouisvilleweird.com. So it was kind of birthed out of that, and I think we have over 800 members, business members, and partners. And LIBA is one of the largest, I believe, independent business alliances in the country. And they're just doing fabulous work, from creating networking opportunities to advocacy. They did a wonderful series recently on racism, and I think they're going to be running that again here in 2021. But they have a lot of events. We just had the summit, the LIBA Member Summit, which was very successful. And that's more for education of business members. And they have a Facebook group, a dedicated Facebook group just for business members, to where you can, share promotions, share information about what your business does. If you're looking for someone, a new employee or an investor, et cetera. So I feel like if you haven't been to the keeplouisvilleweird.com page, it's worth your time to go check out all the different ways that they are involved in our community, because they're really making an impact here. And the membership, I think it's $125 a year. I mean, it's really insignificant. So definitely worth checking out.
Oh yeah, that membership price, that's much lower than some chambers. So yeah. I wasn't aware that it was at 800 members. So I remember when it was just Keep Louisville Weird, Leva was not a thing. That's how long ago I remember it. But yeah, I did want to bring that up. Go ahead, Mitch.
No, just for anybody that's not from around here, LIBA is the Louisville Independent Business Alliance Association.
Yes. Yeah, Alliance.
LIBA. It was interesting. You're talking about the certifications and classes, and that Canopy is looking to open up to individuals coming in and getting certifications and things. Do you see any parallels? Isn't the right word, but like the Leadership Louisville kind of is socially conscious, attracting people that are within the Louisville business community, to be more socially conscious and take a more active role in how they can affect their community. Are there parallels or kind of any kind of symmetry between what Leadership Louisville does and what Canopy does, or do you guys even work together or share information at all?
Well, Scott was in the latest Bingham Fellows class, Making Louisville a Top Tier City, that has come out with some great initiatives. So he's been a very active part of that. So in that sense, the two are tied together. I think Leadership Louisville is a more of an individual membership organization. And then they have the programs, where you can, Ignite or Bingham Fellows or just the main Leadership Louisville program or Focus Louisville. So depending on what your interest and availability is, you can plug in and get involved in making a difference that way. Canopy is for businesses. So it's not an individual certification, it is a business certification. And so the membership is a corporate or a business membership. And we will have programs that are educational and programs that are built to create collaborative opportunities between members. But I think both organizations are doing great work in our community and to make an impact. And so there is that alignment, but it's just a little bit different focus from individual to business.
Gotcha.
Yeah, maybe off topic, but I know that watching things right now, everybody is really getting excited about things opening up, going outside. So things are starting to get pretty active, getting hopefully not too far ahead of, vaccinations and everything. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of there's going to be a lot of events. There's a lot, I know with, for example, GLI, there's a lot of how would you revitalize? What would you suggest to revitalize downtown, bring things into downtown? So yeah, I think our organizations like Canopy and everybody else is going to be really have their hands full. Probably later this summer, as late as the summer, maybe July, August. So I don't know. How do you guys have you talked about that at Canopy, the brace for the tsunami that's coming, or are you kind of yeah, we got it, we're good?
No, I mean, with any nonprofit, you always wish you could hire ahead of the tsunami, but a lot of times we're startups. And so a lot of times you're putting in a lot of hours to create your baby and to launch it into the world. I do think that, we were originally really focused on a lot of events around the state, and the pandemic put kind of a glitch into that. So I think as soon as we can open up and start having in-person events, you will hear a lot more from Canopy. We'll be a lot more visible.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. I think that's the focus for a lot of folks is going from everybody's got Zoom fatigue. And, even this podcast, we've been doing this video podcast for quite a few episodes now. And even I feel that I kind of want to be in a room with these guys and our guests and not have this kind of remote situation going on, because it just creates a different feel in the room and vibe when you have people there. And it's, I don't know, Mitch has talked about this at length, as a creative director, having a group and a creative team in a room is very, very, very different as to having it in this format. So creation of ideas, I think, will definitely expand greatly amongst organizations from creative agencies like ours to nonprofits as well, on how to reach the community and better them, I guess. So
I actually have a coffee appointment this afternoon, an in-person meeting. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
And downtown, it's going to be downtown. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I had a lunch meeting a while back. I was excited for that. You would have thought that I was going to go to Disneyland or something, but no, went to McAllister's.
That's pretty close.
I'm going to shout out some of the other organizations that I'm involved with.
I think you should. Yeah. Cause I was online earlier and I was like, I don't know. Should I put her on the spot? But no, you go ahead.
Yeah. So I had to make a list of all the ones that I'm involved in because it's hard to keep track some days, but I've been on the board of the Morton Center for, I think 7 years. So the Morton Center, if you aren't familiar, is a private substance abuse treatment center. And the difference with the Morton Center, we're not inpatient. So what we have are chairs instead of beds, right? And we like to say there's always a chair open for you. It's kind of like the old commercial where we'll leave the light on for you. There's always a chair for you. Because if you think about it, when someone's ready to get help and they're actually ready to reach out, it's a small window, right? That's a hard step to take. And you don't want to make a phone call just to find out, well, we don't have room for you right now. There's a waiting list, right? And so the Morton Center, you can walk in. You don't have to have an appointment. You can walk in, get an assessment, start treatment right away. And the other differentiator is that we're focused on the family. So, when someone has addiction in their family, it does not just affect the person who is currently abusing substances. It affects the entire family. It affects coworkers. It affects the community around that person. And so to have a place where those people can go get help, because a lot of times those people need help and the person who's addicted is not ready to get help yet. So this is a place where the family members can go and get one-on-one treatment and group therapy, and they have art therapy and horticulture therapy, and it's just a wonderful place to be. So that's one of the areas. My nephew passed away last year to overdose. And he was in the prime of his life. And, I had addiction in my family before that. And so, it's really close to my heart, especially now that people are struggling more than ever. And you're starting to see more and more substance abuse and, suicides and people just feeling despair and not sure where to turn. And if you have that moment when they're ready to raise their hand and say, I need help. I love the fact that we have a place that they can just immediately go to. Rotary, of course, is another one that I'm involved in. I just started that in January. We have one of the largest Rotary clubs in the world here in Louisville. We have almost 400 members. And of course, if you're familiar at all with Rotary, you know all the good that they do around the world. And so that's another way that I make an impact. I'm a vice chair of the speakers committee. And so if you have not checked out Rotary, you're welcome to be my guest. We're on Zoom every Thursday and it's free to attend. You can attend as many times as you want right now. And we're hoping to get in person early summer, actually. So we're excited about that opportunity. You mentioned the Leadership Louisville Center. So I am an official LLC ambassador, which means I promote Leadership Louisville around town. And as you already know, if you're familiar with them, they are doing tremendous things in our community and have really pivoted, with the pandemic to make sure that their programs stay in place. I am on the board of the Network of Entrepreneurial Women, which is more of an informal, it's not a nonprofit. We're just an informal gathering of women entrepreneurs and those people that maybe would like to be an entrepreneur at some point or support women in business. And that is, we meet once a month on Zoom currently, normally in person with wine. But right now we're on Zoom with wine. So that's another opportunity that people can attend those meetings for free. And that's that website is NENTW.com. We talked about LIBA. Another organization that I support is First Hour Grief Response, and that is a nonprofit that steps in when someone has a sudden unexpected loss. So if you think about with suicide or a drug overdose, people, they're in shock. They don't know where to turn. And when the coroner shows up on your doorstep, they're not the most nurturing. They're not the ones that are going to help you out emotionally in dealing with this news. And so First Hour Grief Response is there. Again, it's a free service. You can just call them up and talk to someone who's been through whatever it is, whether it's a loss of a child or loss of a spouse to suicide or whatever it is. Someone there has had that experience and can hold your hand and walk you through it. And then the best one is Little Orphans Kitten Rescue. I get to foster kittens, and it's getting ready to be kitten season. And so these little kittens, this one cat that I showed you earlier, we got when she was 10 days old. Her mother was killed, and so her and her siblings, she had 4 siblings, and they had to be bottle fed every couple of hours. So that was our pandemic project. My daughter is a junior in college at UK. And so we had these kittens in our house and fed them round the clock, and of course ended up keeping one of them. But that is another great organization that, the shelters won't take them when they're that young because they don't have the staff to feed them like that. And so that's a really feel good thing, right? It's a very tangible, who doesn't want to snuggle kittens? And then, work on planning for the Unbridled Eve whenever we have that gala again. I don't think we're going to be able to have it this year, but another organization that raises a lot of funds for charity. And then Startup Week was a really cool experience. We've had one here, and hopefully we will be able to have another one in 2021. That's just a full week of programming for anyone who is interested in starting a business or is in the early stage of a business. So those are just a few. I'm involved in a wide variety of things. I have a lot of interest. I get easily bored. And, we talked earlier about making connections, and we really didn't delve into that very much. And I know you've had other guests on the show recently that have talked about networking and connecting people, but that is one of the most rewarding things that I do. So if you think about Louisville or Kentucky as a big puzzle, and how do all the pieces fit together, right? And so my nerd brain is constantly trying to figure out how can I fit those pieces together. So you talked about listening a lot when you walk in a room, right? You don't just go in and start, introducing yourself and saying, this is what I do and you should buy from me. I listen to try to figure out what this person is involved in, what they're passionate about, what they're connected to, who they're connected to, so that I can then go back to my desk and start sending out virtual introductions. Or if, we're in person, I can walk them across the room and say, you need to meet this person because you guys have something in common. But that has been so rewarding over the last few years in helping people find jobs and helping people find investors, customers. And, sometimes it comes back around and is beneficial for DMLO, but that's not the point at all. Like, I rarely do I talk about DMLO. It's about who can I connect to make Louisville a better place, or to create a beneficial synergy between these organizations. And so I have about 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. And, when someone's looking for a job, I'll just export my connection list to Excel and send it to them and say, if there's anybody, you sort this however you want. If there's anybody on here you want an introduction to, let me know. I'm happy to do that. Because people, especially in Louisville, right, we're all about 2 degrees of separation, and who knows what high school did you go to? And so I can sort on LinkedIn and pull all the people that went to Trinity High School or St. X High School or whatever and say, okay, here's some people. But I think that if we were all more focused on that, we would be a much better place. One of my goals this year has been to increase the diversity in the room with Rotary. So if you think about, the tradition and history of Rotary, I'm kind of the diversity in that room, right? So that's not good. And so I kind of made it my personal mission to connect and invite as many people that weren't currently being represented in that space. And that has been rewarding too, to see the different people come into the room and share their perspectives and, give me feedback on how they view Rotary and what Rotary's doing. So, yeah, I could go on and talk about all the different connections that have been made over the last few years and how rewarding it has been. But so I'll stop and let you ask some questions if you have any.
When do you sleep?
I was about to ask. I said the next episode with you is time management and productivity, because you're doing something right.
That's amen.
When you love what you do, it's hard to get your brain to shut off.
Sure.
So yeah, but I do get my sleep. I'm one of those people that cannot function on 5 hours of sleep, and I'm not an early bird at all. And fortunately, DMLO is, we're ahead of the curve with flexible work schedules, and they are happy for me to come in at 10 o'clock, and then I work, until I get done at night. And I have the freedom to do that right now. So it's easier, to get sleep when you don't have to be up at dark 30. So I take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
Well, if you got one of the things in the notes, a clear purpose helps bring focus to your priorities, and good connections create an environment for good business to thrive. So the secret is kind of like what you just said. Like if you're looking for connections, if you're looking for customers, if you're looking for investors, like get involved, go outside, get out of the boardroom. Like I went through a course in Udemy years ago for startups. And that was one of the things, is like, you always sit around a boardroom and you talk about, wouldn't it be cool? Yeah, but you don't even talk to anybody. You've not gone outside to ask anybody if it is cool. So get outside, talk to they'll talk to 7 people. They would say, talk to 700, and so it takes time to do that and build those relationships. But if you're not going out, I mean, you've listed a ton of places that anybody in business can go out, get involved with, and start making those connections. And whatever the priority is, though, is still to remember to make connections and to try to help, not try to sell. Because the byproduct of making connections and doing good is later, I believe, is the reward of, hey, I need help with, and I know you guys can do that. That's the way I've always viewed it.
Especially younger generations, they pay attention to the values of the companies that they do business with. Mm-hmm. So if they know that you have similar values, then they're more likely to do business with you, even if it may cost a little bit more or be a little bit less convenient, because they want to work with someone who shares their values. So I find that to be more and more true these days. And so that, we do end up getting new business indirectly, because when someone has a need for what we do, they remember, Delene introduced me to this person, or Delene helped sponsor this event, or Delene, got 10 items for our auction, our silent auction, and so then, it pays off. But I mean, that's not the reason, but it does come back around. I believe that if you put good out into the world, it will come back to you.
Yeah. I've seen that before when you produce, like for us, if you have a good brand, that's what happens. People will pay more because they trust your brand, they trust your message and what you're saying. For years I wouldn't do like SEO, but I would blog and do content, put stuff out like this. And, this is our 50th show. We're getting up on our 1 year with it. And, we're getting now guests that I don't think that we expected when we first started. We didn't, as Mitch is shaking his head.
Didn't. No, really, we didn't.
Yeah. I mean, our intent was to kind of show who we are and kind of do that. I mean, it wasn't really used. We don't really use the podcast to sell or as a lead gen in any sort, but people kind of get to know us, and it's a lot easier to listen or watch this to kind of get to know us, what we're thinking and what we're like, and whether or not they want to work with us. And so, I like I agree with John. I don't know how you sleep. I really don't. But, somebody like you, as active as you are, it sounds like you've got a great platform and opportunity at DMLO to be able to do that. If not for them, then I don't know how many other people could be working at a place, at an employer, and have the time that is afforded to them to join so many organizations and be involved. So I don't know, maybe one time you need to share your secret.
Well, I will say that up until the end of last year, I was part-time. So I logged 29 hours a week officially on average for DMLO. So that allowed a lot of time to do other things. Not that they don't encourage and welcome us to be involved in nonprofit organizations and to give back to the community, even on company time. But it was a little overboard with so many different organizations. So now I've moved to full time, and it is I've had to cut back a little bit on some of the things that I do. But that's okay. I help out where I can, and I try to connect to other people who can fill in if it's something that I can no longer do. One of the things that DMLO does that I'm really pleased about, we've been doing since I've been there 7 years, is free open office hours. So for entrepreneurs, so we have a co-working space down at Story Louisville, and also with the iHub co-working space with U of L Fork Center. And we just meet people there or at the coffee shop or at our office or wherever is convenient, and just do free consulting basically to help them, whether it's choosing your entity type or, what kind of accounting software should I use, or how do I fill out a 990 for my nonprofit, whatever it is. It's rewarding to be able to help people get started on the right track. And, a lot of startups, they don't have cash flow. They can't afford a CPA. They need a CPA, right? But they can't really afford one. And so if we can help people get started off on the right track, a lot of them, they may not be millionaires, but there's a few that will go on to be, millionaires, and hopefully they'll remember that we were there at the beginning. And so it's exciting to be able to be active in so many spaces in town.
Yeah, you never know who's going to have the next Amazon. I think there was a picture of Jeff Bezos in his office. It was this crappy Walmart desk looking thing, and on the wall is spray painted Amazon.com. It was just selling books. And there's just wires everywhere on his desk and all this stuff. And you look back at that and you look at where he's at now, and you're just like, if you ever get in a room with that guy, you should go talk to him. Don't worry, like, oh, I can't approach him. Don't do that. Just go up there. Just be like, hey, I got some questions for you, sir.
Well, in Louisville too, the same thing. I think there are a lot of people that, someone would be hesitant and think, oh, well, they wouldn't respond to me. I am Facebook friends with a lot of those people. I will ask anybody to be my Facebook friend. And it is amazing how many people that I've never met, never spoke to, don't have any real relationship with will accept my friend request. And then it's amazing because you start liking their posts, you start seeing what's going on in their lives. Mm-hmm. And if you do run into those people in a public setting, you're already friends, right? Like they've seen what's going on with you, with your kids, what you're doing in the community. And, they're used to seeing your picture and seeing you comment on their pages. And I mean, I like Sib Barnstable. I've never been to the Barnstable Brown party, but I saw her face pop up on Facebook, and I sent a request and she accepted it. I mean, you would just be shocked at the people that are willing to connect with you if you reach out. And I tell people, don't ever be afraid to, and I mean, LinkedIn, I guess, is the more common place where people reach out to strangers in the business world, but Facebook more and more so for me. And so I tell people, don't be hesitant. Like if you don't just send, 100 generic LinkedIn invitations, right? You have to send something personal to say why you want to connect with that person. And then the odds go way up as to, they'll connect with you because you're involved in a similar nonprofit, or you went to the same high school, or somebody that's doing good work. But people, especially accountants, right? Like they are just so hesitant to take that leap and to reach out to strangers. And it's amazing what you can accomplish when you actually do that.
Yeah.
Something you just said, I think, is really key. And that's especially with LinkedIn. If you want to find someone, if you want someone to follow your account, you need to find some synergy there, something that you have in common, something meaningful to give them the reason to want to connect with you. Because we all know it, that you get spammed constantly by, all these requests, and it's basically businesses looking to get into your pocket. I mean, I'm not bad mouthing. That's just the way it is. But you can make meaningful connections. And this is where I think everything you said holds real value. It's not what they can necessarily do for you today. It's the people they can introduce you to, the relationships you can build that can connect you with other people. And yeah, maybe you'll make a connection out of that of value that may come back and benefit you from a business standpoint. But it's that value in making connections with people on a level that matters to them that I think is where the real value comes in. And you're a pro. You should teach it.
I did the session for LIBA for the summit. I did a half-hour session, and I did it for the U of L Card Start program, and I do it for clients. I'll go out and they'll buy lunch, and then we'll sit around the table and walk through how to utilize LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter it's basically an online. It's just a relationship. It's another way to have a relationship, right? It's not social media. It's a conversation. Right. It's how do you find someone that you share an interest with, connect with them, and then nurture that relationship through conversations, which is, what we do on the phone or what we do through email. I mean, you just do it online instead because it's, the platform of choice. And people just way underestimate the value of that. And so, I try to go out and teach people where they'll have me. It's kind of odd for a CPA to do, but I find that if I can do it, right, then if a CPA can do it, then most other people should be able to.
Yeah. Learn some social skills, folks.
Don't have any. You've always got the online environments because, like you were saying, I think the old saying is it's a megaphone, or it's not a megaphone, it's a telephone. If you view social in that way, that especially if you jump into different networks like Twitter, you can talk to anybody, you can introduce yourself to anybody, even if they're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. They're still there as Mike.
As an individual.
They're still there as an individual, and they're there for the same reason everybody else is, to connect with people, to make networking relationships. And that's how we're booking guests for the podcast in a lot of ways. I mean, you came from Facebook. We've got, a senior person from GoFundMe coming on in April that came through Twitter. We've got some other big names that came through LinkedIn and Twitter. And so, it's not like we're out on the sidewalk saying you want to come on a podcast.
Yeah.
You guys have Jordan. Jordan is coming on, or was he on already?
He'll be on next week. Jordan.
Oh yeah, Jordan is awesome. He was inspirational to me in my LinkedIn journey as well. He is. I am not a pro. He's a pro. He's a real pro at using LinkedIn and social to develop relationships. So you guys are in for a treat with Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for our listeners out there, it's Jordan Clemens from GLI will be on the show next week. He'll be talking about. Basically, we're going to kind of go over some pointers about LinkedIn, how to use it, and kind of let him kind of share. He did I believe it was either a seminar or webinar last month. And so he's going to talk a little bit about how that went and what the outcome was. So we're kind of, I'm looking forward to that, because I have noticed a lot of people are interested right now in LinkedIn. And I looked at the numbers recently, and I was just kind of blown away at how many users are now on there. It's literally doubled since I haven't looked far back when it started doubling, but put it this way, last time I checked, the average user was about 350 million were on there. Now it's like 770 million. So it's substantially grown. Maybe some of that was Microsoft buying it out. I don't know, but yeah, online though. But I mean, like you said, don't forget, there's other networks, there's other ways to connect. Again, like John brought up, some of our podcast sources are in LinkedIn, like having relationships on there, not just blasting tweets out, hoping somebody sees it. That's not what we're doing. And then, like you brought up Facebook, just being friends with people. There's actually, I tell you what, reference is a really good snippet episode of Joe Rogan's podcast where he's talking to Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart actually was in a room with Jeff Bezos, and he grabbed his wife and he went over there, and his buddy kept telling him like, "Oh, don't go bother the guy." And Kevin Hart said, "Yeah, no, I'm going to go ask him, because he's almost like a billionaire. I want to know, like, what's 1 trillion look like, or to get that close. Like he was just, just it's Kevin Hart, right? So, but he had the guts to go over there and just talk to them like a normal thing. Like, John, you said it perfectly. Like in his world, it's like such and such CEO is Mike, not CEO of
just Jeff. He's just a guy.
Yeah,
just Jeff.
Smart, much smarter than most of us. But
yeah, it's like Jeff. Hey, Jeff, you seen WandaVision? Okay, I mean that's kind of the way we are. It's like we look for like that common interest, not just in business. It's like you're trying to like it's a business relationship. There's got to be something obviously more there for that synergy to happen. I keep using that word. I hate it because I'm not that type of person. But at the end of the day, it's like, are you a DC Marvel fan? You like video games? You like wrestling? What are you into? What is your nerd thing? And it's not always that. It could be just whatever you're passionate about. Because like I said, we define it like Will Wheaton defines it, and that's not what you love, it's how you love it. So I think that kind of would probably go wrap up everything here, unless we got anything else before I close the show out that wants to be dropped, named, mentioned. I got a bunch of.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Boy, the time flew. I had a blast.
Yeah, it goes pretty quick, and I may have to edit down a lot because I don't know about an hour and a half podcast, but you might, maybe happens. But I want to thank all of our listeners that like, subscribe, share, and help us out with this. We're glad to. This is one of the things we love doing, to help bring other people to this platform, let them talk about their passions and their nerd. And sometimes we just kind of get on here and geek out as well. Next week, we'll have Jordan Clemens from GLI on. So be sure to go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast. Tune into that. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/YX247 some. We need more likes and subscriptions, people, so that we can get Vanity Earl still. We're still working on that. So if you're listening, make sure you do that and help us out. Everywhere else on social media, you can find us where, John?
At NerdBrand Agency, anywhere.
Yeah.
The usual suspects, but probably even some of the less usual suspects, like Reliable and things like that. Try to keep consistent.
And Delene, where can people find you at Canopy and at DMLO?
Oh, so just go to DMLO.com to the About Us section, and you can find my bio and all my connection information there. And Canopy, canopyky.org. Great little video on there that Ben Salee helped us put together, and so it's worth your time. Go watch it.
All right, there you go, everybody. So now you know. So thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Delene, for being on. And everybody, remember, keep your nerd brand strong.